Hey guys, I'm Jose and this is tutorial number 7. And in this tutorial we're gonna just put together some of the concepts that we've seen already. And as well just we're gonna learn how to do a little bit more of work with Rhino commands, right? So we're gonna build a class that will build lines between two curves. Um, so it's going to be very simple, like a short script, but we will run into a few different problems, and this is we'll start kind of clarifying a little bit how to write Python scripts in Rhino. So let's start defining a class, right? Then we're going to call just whatever, like my class. You can give it your own name if you want to reuse this class later on. And we're going to define a constructor. So this class, sorry, you would be required to input a few different information to make this class work. So we're gonna say init and then self, underscore str curve 01. So what I'm specifying as a first kind of input for this class would be a curve, right? I'm using this variable name called str curve 01, and I'm gonna also name a second curve that's underscore str curve 02, right? Because I'm gonna require two curves to actually work with this class. So let's close that and column, and then we're gonna specify self dot str curve 1 equals underscore str curve 01. So what is this line doing? This line is saying, hey, there would be a variable called str curve 01 inside the class that would get initialized with the variable with the information coming out from the input, right? So this name could be anything. You could say S1, and you would have to put S1 here, right? What I try to do, like I do this stuff in other programming languages as well, is just maintain a consistent kind of notation of when this variable is being passed as an input. I just put this underscore, right? You don't really need to put this underscore at all. It's just, you could put any name here. It's just the way for me to just remember, hey, this is the input that is coming from outside the class that is being provided, and in this constructor you're kind of initializing this variable str curve 1 with this information. So we're going to do the same thing for the second curve. You can just copy all this stuff, right, and change it to 2, right? So we have a constructor with two curves. They need to be the identifiers of the object we will be working with. And then we're gonna do a function, something like def. I'm gonna do quite a long name here because I want it to be very descriptive of what we're gonna do. We're gonna say draw line between curves, right? So that's the name of my function, and I'm gonna specify self here so I can work with the variables that are in the class. And now we're going to specify a few things to do. So just to see that this is working, I'm going to just stop for a second here. I'm going to make something like print everything is okay so far, right? So in this way I will be able to call my class and we're gonna check if everything is working, right? So obj1, this is the name that we will give to the object, and we're gonna say equals my class, and I need to give basically two identifier values for objects. If you guys remember how we did that, we did a variable, say strco1, whatever name you want, and we use a function from Rhino that is called get objects. Sorry, get object. Get objects with an S. It's another function that allows us to pick several objects simultaneously. So this function allows us to pick objects from the workspace, right? So we're going to put a little message here, say pick first curve, right? And we're going to specify the filter for. If you don't remember this method, you can just go and check it back with F1. And 4 will be the filter that would specify that we can only pick curves, right? So this variable will be the identifier of an object that is our first curve. We will copy this line with, say, I'm typing Control-C, and I'm pasting Control-V. So I'm going to make str curve O2, CO2. This is kind of the shortcut that I gave. So pick second curve, and also the filter would be 4. So now when I create my class, I need to specify these two identifiers for the objects, right? So these two string values. So I'm going to paste those two inside. So far it seems everything that's okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to call the function that we created, draw line between curves. That for now is just printing this message, but we will do a little bit more here, right? So let's see if this is working. So let's see. Pick first line. Oh, by the way, I actually drew these two curves on the workspace. I forgot to mention that you can just draw them yourself before running the script. So if you do, like, draw two curves and just pick them first, pick the first curve and pick the second curve, that's fine, and then we get the message everything is okay so far. So cool. So we've got till this point we are calling this function, and we have a class that is working with two curves. That's fine. So what I want to do next is introduce you to some of the methods that we can actually do with some curves, right? So I'm going to just leave that line there, and I'm going to say pt list. So this is the name of a variable that I'm going to just build up myself. So it says point list, right, or 1, and I'm going to use the function from Rhino called divide curve, right? So when we are when we start using a new function like divide curve, again, I really recommend to just go to this the help file. So we can say here divide curve. Oh, that's open already. And when you go to the divide curve command, it will tell you, okay, required parameters: the ID of the first curve, or like basically the curve that you will be dividing, the number of segments. This is the two required fields that you will have to specify, those two, and the rest of the stuff is optional. So it's saying this is optional, this is optional. So those two other parameters are optional. Let's check what those are saying. It's like Boolean. This third parameter is a Boolean saying, do you want to create those points? If omitted or false, points are not created. And so we'll put true just to see those points. And then the last one says return points, optional as well. So if we say true, this will return, the function will give us back an array of 3D points. If we omit it or true, the points themselves would be returned. All right. So let's see what we're gonna do here. We're gonna use divide curve. We're gonna give our first curve as the input of that, self.curve1, right? And then we're gonna say number of divisions was 20, anything really. And then we're gonna specify true, comma, true. Why? Because we want to get the points back, and we want to draw those points on the screen. So we want to see that visually, that we're kind of making this division happen, right? So let's see if this is working so far. we have those curves over there. Okay, so let's run that. Pick first curve, pick second curve, and everything is okay so far, so no error. So if we go and see, you have to, in my case, I have to move a little bit the screen just to see that result. You'll see that the curve has been divided into, or there has been so many points created along the curve, right? That's pretty good. I just Control Z, so I undid the work of the script, and I'm gonna copy this line again. I'm copying with Control C and Control V, and I'm gonna change the name of the list to second list. So this time around I would just divide the second curve, right? So I'm getting two lists in which in one case I'm building this kind of operation where I divide all the points, and this function is returning the first list of points, like the points on one of the curves, and in the other case I'm going to do it in the other curve, right? So let's check that. Same thing, we go and check, and there we go, we have the division of the curves in both curves working, right? So quite straightforward. So maybe the most tricky part here is actually drawing the line between the points. What we have so far is two lists of points, and we need to be able to specify how to connect them. So what we're gonna do here is a loop. We're gonna loop through the points of one list, or basically we're gonna loop through the number of points in one list, and we're gonna say, okay, connect this guy to the first guy of the other line, connect the second one to the second one, and so forth, right? So how do we do that? We're gonna start, we're gonna build a counter that we're gonna say, it's a variable that will be just a counter. We're gonna say count equals 0, right? And next we're gonna just say for I in pt list 1, right? We are like, what this is saying is like there would be certain amount of elements in PD list 1, right? And I was gonna just go through all of them. In this case, because PD list 1 contains points, not numbers, we are not able to use I as a reference to the object, but we will use count. That is our kind of own personal counter. So we're gonna say rs dot add line. We haven't seen this method, but this method takes two parameters, like one point and another point, and we'll connect those two. So let's see how to access the information from these lists. And the next tutorial would be on lists, so like don't get scared from all this stuff on lists, but you will see that most of the stuff, most of the complex procedures that we'll be doing in Python would be handling the returning lists of functions, right? So what I'm going to do is just open parentheses here and close parentheses, and I'm going to specify these two values. The first one would be the first point of this list, right? And the first point will be the name of the list and the element 0 of that list, right? And in the second case, I'm gonna copy this, comma would be the element 0 of the other list, right? The problem with this is that we will just go through only the first element. We need to be able to type inside here this 0 instead of 0 being the first element. Like we want to go through every element, right? So for that we're going to use our count. So we're going to type count here and count here. And the only missing bit here would be saying, well, count, every time we do this operation, count becomes larger in 1 unit, right? So it increments in 1 unit. So we're going through all of the points in one of the lines, and we are building a line between that point and the point of the other line, and so the element 0 of that list, and then the next one is the element 1, the element 2, and the element 3, and so forth, right? So at this stage, what we're doing is just connecting every point of one line with every point on the other line, right? And at the same time, we're printing everything is okay. This is the whole definition of our class, right? Let's clean a little bit here. So it's a quite small class, and we can reuse it for any number of curves, any two curves. So I'm gonna just let's see if I have that. Okay. So I'm gonna run it. So I'm gonna pick first curve, pick second curve, and there we go. So what do we have right now? It's just that both curves got divided into the number, like in this case 20 number of divisions. My window kind of went all over the place, right? Number of divisions 20, and we connect them, and we also created the points for that, right? I'm undoing that, and I want to make this class, just to finish this in this tutorial, we're going to make this class slightly more flexible. So what if we want to just specify the number of divisions, right? So I'm going to add a new argument for the constructor. So we're going to say comma underscore number of divisions, right? So we're going to say something like self dot num of divisions equals underscore. I'm just going to copy and paste it because it's easier, right? So we're going to create a third argument. So if we would try to run this class now, nothing would change. I mean, we would have an error, right? We need to specify the number of divisions here. So here now we're going to say like 60, right? Like much more. If we would run this again, we would get exactly the same result we had before, just because we are still specifying quite precisely that we want 20 divisions per line, right? We need to link these variables together. So we're going to pick this self, the number of divisions, that is the global variable of the class, that the class knows that it has this variable. And we're going to plug it, paste it in those values, right? So let's see right now. We have these lines, and now we're specifying, we're calling this class with 60 divisions. We could try it with any two number of curves and any number of divisions, and we're going to see how, if we click in the first and in the second one, it works perfectly, right? I'm going to undo that. I'm going to pick these curves. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn control points on here, so we can see these curves, and I'm going to move these points slightly, like there, right? I can also move this guy maybe somewhere here, just to make something slightly more interesting. So right, we have something kind of a little bit more crazy, right? So that's looking pretty good. And we're going to just call this function again with maybe